To the reading of His Word this day. The other day something happened to me. I'd like to say it's an isolated incident, but it's not. But I wanted to share with you and see if this has ever happened to you. If you have children or you've raised children and you still vividly remember what that was like, maybe this will resonate with you a little bit. But have you ever walked into your kid's room and it's just completely covered with toys and things? Like every square inch of the floor is completely covered. Like they got every single thing they own out and they never put a single thing away before they got the next thing out. Well, the other day I went up to my little girl's room and she had a friend over and they had been playing. And I don't know why I went up there, maybe to get clean pajamas out for her or something. And I walked inside her room and my jaw dropped because there was, as I said, stuff everywhere, covering every surface there could possibly be. There were books here, there were stuffed animals there, there was a dollhouse in disarray over here, dress-up clothes and files over there. And it was a situation where you weren't really paying attention and you walk in and then you suddenly realize what's going on and you're wondering how on earth you even made it into the room without stepping on something and crushing it. And you're not really sure what to do next. You can't move forward because there's stuff there. You can't move to the left or the right, there's stuff. You know if you step backwards you're probably going to crush something and then you're going to have a little sad little kid on your hands. But the thing that I'm trying to get at is I tried to enter into her room like I needed to, and I couldn't do that day because there was all this stuff blocking my way. There was all these things in my path, and I couldn't enter in. I couldn't do what I needed to do. And it wasn't until my little girl marched herself upstairs and cleaned things up that I could do that, until I could enter in and do what I needed to do. And if that scene from my house means anything to you, resonates with you, I'm hoping that you'll understand our message for today. We've come to the beginning of Holy Week this Sunday, Palm Sunday, and that is the day in the church when we celebrate the triumphant entry into the city of Jerusalem that Jesus made. We heard the story today. When I read that, I try to imagine. It says the whole city was stirred. I'm trying to imagine the energy in the city that day and surrounding the situation. The city was abuzz because it was time for the Passover. The Passover is like what Easter is for us. It's the most important holiday in the Jewish faith. So everybody was in town. Everybody's getting ready. There's all this activity and all this action going on. Because there were two big events that were going to take place. One was, yes, the Passover, but there was another one. And that was with Jesus, and that was the even bigger event. And in both cases, there was preparation that needed to be done for it as well. In order for these things to happen, there needed to be some preparation being made. So, as the Lord approaches the city with His disciples, He sends a couple of them on ahead and He says, go in the gate and you're going to see a donkey with its colt tied up there, and I want you to untie them and bring them to me. And if anybody says anything to you, then just say the Lord needs them, and they'll let you go. And so they did that. They went ahead, they found the donkeys tied there just as the Lord said. They untied them, brought them to Him. When they returned, it says that they put their cloaks across the back of the donkey, and He climbed aboard and He sat on the donkey there. And at that moment, Jesus was ready. He was ready to enter into the city, you see, but as we know, He was going to do much more than just simply enter the city that day. Because what happened after He entered the city was going to change everything. It was the beginning of the single most important event in the history of the world. And He was headed towards more than just a religious observance like many of the people in the city thought was going to happen that week. He was headed towards His destiny. He was headed to His calling. The reason for why He was there and why he had been called to that city, and why the prophecy said that he needed to be there at that time. Because the week would begin with him entering the city triumphantly, and it would end with him dying on a cross. And come back next week to see what happens after that. But Jesus knew what would happen once he entered into the city. But the question is, what did the others think? Did they understand what was going on? Well, I think they did to a degree. I'm not sure that the disciples ever really totally got him until after the whole week was over and beyond. But they seem to understand at some level. If you go and you look at Matthew chapter 20 that precedes this one, chapter 21 that we heard read, Jesus spells that all out for them. In verse 18 there, in Matthew chapter 20, he said, "We're going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed by the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and they will condemn him to death, and they will turn him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and on the third day he will be raised to life." And even before that, in Matthew chapter 17, he says basically the same thing there in verse 22. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised to life. So they must have known. I don't know that they totally understood what he was saying, but they knew that something was going to happen. Something big was about to happen. And they knew that when Jesus entered that city, he was entering in to do something big, something profound. And I imagine that the folks in town, some of them, at any rate, knew that he was coming to, and they knew he was entering to do something. He was entering in to do something. But look for a moment what they did about it. It says in verse 8 there, Matthew chapter 21 again, "A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road." And the kids did a wonderful job today, didn't they? They laid the branches there across the road for me to talk about. And what these folks were doing, do you see it? They were preparing his way to enter in, weren't they? And look what else they did in verse 9. It says, "The crowds then went ahead of him, and those that followed shouted, 'Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!'" Do you see what's happening there? The people were proclaiming who he was. And they finished that up in stating who he was when the people asked. The people said, "Who is this?" Verse 10, "Who is this? Who is this guy who's just riding in here like he's somebody? Who's this guy who is coming in here like he's going to do something, and he's of some importance?" And the crowd of people answered them, "This is Jesus. This is Jesus." And I want you all to take careful note of what the followers of Jesus were doing here. They were cutting down the tree limbs, the palm fronds, and laying them down on the road. They were taking their coats off, their cloaks, and they were laying those down as well. And they were shouting his praises, and they were proclaiming his arrival. To these people, the people who got it, to the people who understood, to the people who were following him, who believed he was there to do something great and something mighty, they prepared the way. They prepared the way. And they treated him like he was a triumphant king entering his rightful city. They treated him like he was their liberating king, riding in majestically and in triumph. They cleared a path for him. They cleared the way for the coming of the Lord. And it's interesting how they did it. They started by cutting down the tree limbs, the palm fronds that were along the way. In other words, they trimmed the trees. And folks, I don't know what you need to do in order to see Jesus today, but if your view happens to be blocked lately, maybe it's time to trim the trees, so to speak.